Well, hello everyone, Dan Hurd with Dan Hurd Prospecting here. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new, welcome. I hope to earn your subscription today. The rivers and creeks here in BC, Canada are in full spring runoff. We're talking raging water right now. Unsafe to really do much down by the creeks and rivers for probably about a month now. So instead of working unsafe rivers, I've got other prospecting and mining tasks to do. Claims and whatnot that are high and away from the river. And like today, I plan to do some gold ore processing with the Gold Drop on some hard rock crush. Wish me luck, and I hope you enjoy. Now, if you watched one of my last videos on ore processing, you will have seen me process some of this ore from an old mine site that I've been sitting on for years. And I found it to be extremely rich. Very, very, very rich. I only processed about half of it and got a lot of gold from it. Now, I plan to process the other half by crushing down the bigger pieces, making it just a very, very fine powder, and running it through the Gold Drop to see how well the Gold Drop can recover hard rock crush gold, and hopefully lots of it. Oh, she's heavy. Oh. Now the plan here is, first I have to break up this material because it's been sitting in this bucket for years and years and years, and it is very solidified in here. So I have to break it all up, and then because it's still in, big chunks, I will run it through the big crusher. Now, the big crusher here has no output screen, so basically anything that goes in could come out the other side. It doesn't really powder the material completely. So what I'll do is I'll run it through there to break it down and make it into its smaller chunks, and then I will classifying it using 1/8, 1/16, 20 mesh, and probably 50 mesh classifiers. I will run anything bigger than 50 mesh through the Cobra Crusher here and bring it down into a nice powdered ore. I'm hoping for most everything to be sub 50 mesh, and I'll run it through the Gold Drop Concentrator to see if I can recover the gold that is in that ore. If you haven't seen my previous videos on the Gold Drop Concentrator, go back and have a look. I go through all the hows and whats and whys and everything of the Gold Drop Concentrator, how it works and how it is at recovering placer gold. Today's task is to see how well it recovers hard rock crushed gold. So here we go. So once everything's crushed, we do have to open up the crusher here and clear it out so that there's no material left inside the crusher. There we go. There's the inside of my crusher. 6 chains, 1 hard hammer in the middle, and when you are done crushing, you do end up with a fair bit of material left in the bottom here that needs to be just sort of pulled out. And there we go, 1 good bucket of crush. Now in here, what I see is, the biggest rocks are about 1/4 inch, about 80% of it is under 1/16, but there are bigger chunks in here. So I will classify this down and run it through the small crusher, the bigger stuff through the small crusher, and get it to more consistent level. Okay, time to classify this down. I've got the 1/8 and the 1/16 on here, vibrate it all through. Now unfortunately this stuff is slightly damp, which actually really hinders its classification, but we'll see what we can do. There we are, all minus 1/16 in there. That stuff needs to go through the little crusher. I should talk about this little powered classifier I'm using here. It's known as the Tremor classifier. Big thanks to Mark from Goldstream Placer Supplies for hooking me up with the guys from Angus McKirk and Broken Back Mining Supplies to get me one of these. They work great, especially for dry crush material for classifying down. You can stack multiple classifiers on top so you can get multiple classifications going through it. They work quite well. You just connect it up to a 12-volt battery and it vibrates away, classifying away. Thanks, guys. So I have to call the crushing and classifying quits at this stage here. This is 20 minus, so anything that would fit through a 20 mesh classifier. Unfortunately, because it's slightly damp, it's plugging up my classifiers and it's actually plugging up my grinders, my crushers as well. The output screen is plugging up and then it's, bogging down the machine because stuff can't get through. So 20 mesh will have to do for the test today, and we're gonna start running it through the Gold Drop. So again, if you want to learn how this Gold Drop from Sluice Goose works, check out my previous video on it where I explain all the physics, all the, what's going on inside this machine to separate gold from the rest of the dirt. Today, we're just using it. I will be setting my water flow level to 0.3 to start with because I am using a small classification. I have got both agitation waters turned right off at the moment, just the separation water is turned on. If you notice that the water is already murky, well, that's because I'm reusing the same water I used last time, and in real world circumstances, not just, a lab test, this stuff is dirty. It makes that water muddy. You have to work with muddy water. That being said, we won't be able to see exactly what's going on as well as when I had the clean water in there. Let's put a scoopful in and set the machine. You can see I have a little bit of hopper water on. Wash that in nicely. A little bit of hopper water on to make sure everything's washing in. 1 scoop in there will have gone down into the cone just before the separation chamber. You can actually see a few pieces of gold flittering around in there already. I will get out the close-up cam. But unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see anything going down into the jar to start with because of the muddy water. And as I put that stuff in, it's going to get even muddier faster because that stuff's nasty. So we're going to start setting the water pressures. We're going to turn a little bit of agitation water on to get the main chamber up here moving around. Not much because we don't want it blowing out any fine gold. Then we're going to turn down the separation water, the water that goes into the bottom. We're going to turn it down until we start seeing more and more of the gold and possibly pyrites falling in. There we go. I see some coming down and in now. Maybe that's a little too small. Turn it up a bit. Turn the water levels back up a little bit so nothing's coming down into the chamber. Here we go. I'm going to start turning it down very slowly so you can watch the material start to come down into the separation chamber. That's a bit too much. Turn it back up. We're very, very, very fine adjustments here because I want just a tiny bit to come into the chamber. Just like that. Now these will be the heaviest of the heavies. These will be the pyrites, the scheelite, and the gold coming down into the chamber and into the jar, which you can't really see what's going in there right now. We're going to get just the heavies of the heavies, and then when we go and take that jar out, we'll decide sort of how much is pyrite versus gold that's coming down in there. Let's start feeding. I see lots coming down and falling in right now, and they all seem to be big black specks. So those will be the pyrrhotite. That's an iron pyrite, a special type of iron pyrite. Very, very heavy stuff. And I'm going to be getting a lot of that into my final jar, hopefully with the gold. We won't really tell until we get, take it all apart, put that in a pan, how easy that pyrrhotite and gold is going to be to separate from each other. There's the action in the main chamber. The churning of the material so that the lights go up, the heavies come down, and hopefully the heavies get into that interface between the separation chamber and the main chamber, and the heavies fall in, and then the separation water does its job of letting the heaviest stuff go down and pushing the lighter stuff back up. Now, of course, doing a test like this, you don't want to lose the gold that you may have in there because, well, you're testing a machine and you don't know if it's actually catching right. Luckily, the way this machine works is anything that comes out the tailings drops into another bucket. It doesn't go away, it's just in that bucket. If I want to rerun the bucket, maybe slower, maybe more aggressive, maybe crush it again, whatever it might be, I can redo the tailings that are in the bucket. There are three sort of types of material left over when you're done this. You have the tailings, the stuff that's come out of the machine. You have the stuff that stays in the main chamber here. And then you have your ultra-rich cons in the jar. Okay, in the jar should be the heaviest of the heavies, hopefully all the big gold. In the main chamber, the medium heavies and the fine gold should stay in there. So we don't throw this away because there still is gold in there. Hopefully, coming out here, there is no gold. This is just garbage. This is interesting. The bottom of the cone is just black, black, black. Means that that's that pyrrhotite in there, the iron sulfide, very heavy material. It holds the gold, and it's just the bottom of my whole cone is all sulfides. I have no idea what's down there. Well, it's all in the machine now. I'm just gonna let it do its thing for a while. I'm gonna go make myself a coffee, or warm up the coffee I let get cold, or something like that, and just let it process for, 15, 20, half an hour. Let it get all the last piece of the gold that will fall into that jar. Then I'll come back and see what I've got. Well, there we go. The hopper is clean. All washed out, all washed into the machine. I've let it run for about 20 minutes. Went and had a coffee, went and had a nap. And now I've come back to see what it has done. Now, there's far too much mud in this water for me to see what's actually happening anymore. I can see that there's material making it down into the separation chamber, but I don't really know what's happening. I don't even know what's in the jar. I kind of have to just go by faith that, the machine is doing what it's supposed to. But it's time to shut things down, take off the jar, and see what I have. I will take the tailings, that bucket, the tailings, and run them through the Gold Hog multi-sluice to see how well the Gold Drop did at collecting all the gold, and what the multi-sluice can catch that the Gold Drop didn't. First job in shutting things down is I have to get all the material out of the separation chamber. I do that by turning up the separation water until I don't see anything left in the chamber. There we go. Chamber's clear. And that way nothing will fall down on top of the gate. Make sure both the agitation wires are turned right off, and then I can close the gate. Can I do it with one hand? If I use the camera as a support. There we go. Close the gate valve. At that point, I can actually take off the jar. I might need both hands for this. Wow, it was tight. Now I can take it off. Anything that, the machine was going to separate from that run is in that jar. I can't tell what's there, it's too muddy. Let's get some clean water in it. Well, there we go. A jar with, a half inch of the heaviest of the heavies in the bottom. Now this will be pyrrhotite, iron pyrite, maybe some chalcopyrite. I'm not sure if there's any copper here. The white pieces you see are scheelite, a ore of tungsten, and hopefully some gold. If you see any clear crystals, they're the scheelite as well. Anything rusty is definitely iron. I see gold, and a fair amount of it in there. Let's get this in a pan and see what it looks like. That is a pan full of pyrite. So if anything left in the pan here, any of the irons that have any rust on them, anything rusty will be the lightest, and it's up on the surface right now. When I shake it, when I stratify it, the rusty bits come to the surface. The next lightest is the iron pyrrhotite. That's the black stuff. So if I take it and swirl the pyrrhotite away, the black and rusty stuff away, underneath it becomes silver. That's the sulfides, the pyrites, either copper pyrite or iron pyrite. Most likely here it's iron. Now underneath the iron pyrite, the next most heavy thing is the scheelite. Now that's the white crystal. That's an ore of tungsten. Scheelite is heavier than pyrite, heavier than pyrrhotite, but still a bit lighter than gold. Now, strangely enough, as I'm swirling this around, showing you the different materials and everything, I see gold in here. I see some pretty nice gold. Let's show you this piece right now. There's a nice piece of gold right there, in with the scheelite. And now let's swirl away the scheelite. We have to remember that there's lots and lots of gold in everything here. I see pieces going by all over the place. But underneath the scheelite, what do we see? A pile. And I mean a pile of gold. Look at that. There is a lot of hard rock gold right there. And that's just the stuff that was small and the right shape to fall to the bottom and not get caught up in the scheelite. So there's a lot of gold, a lot more than just that little smile of gold, all through the scheelite. Gold. I'm not sure if this camera is doing it justice or not when I say that there's a lot of gold stuck in that scheelite. I mean, there is a lot of gold. I think I might want to actually take this home to the microscope and show you guys what this sand looks like under the microscope, because it is loaded in gold. And of course, there's the gold that easily separated as well. Now a quick tap just to get the gold by itself there. There's still a whole lot in there, but there's a good looking pile of it. Remember, this is just what was in the jar. That machine should have a whole bunch in the main chamber still. Let's go see what's there. Now, to recover the material that's in the main chamber, we have to flush it down into a bucket, which is fairly easy. We make sure that the two agitation waters are off, we make sure that the hopper water is off, and then we open the gate valve with the bucket underneath. We can turn off the agitation water at this point, let it all flow through, give it a little squirt of water out of each of the valves to make sure that everything is washed down and in. There we go. Everything is washed through into the bucket and nice and clean. Close the valve and we have a bucket of what was in the main chamber. But let's go see what's in our bucket. That's what was still in the machine. Now, if I want to do this the right way, really what I should do is I should take all of this stuff and run it through the crusher one more time, make it a finer powder, and then run it through the gold drop again at lower settings and capture the gold. But I want to see what's in here, so I'm just going to pan it out today. Very nice gold with pyrites and scheelite there, but that is fine, fine, fine powder gold. There's probably about 10 billion pieces of gold in that. Now, before I run those tailings, running hard rock crush that's full of sulfides like this is extremely hard on equipment. The sulfides are full of sulfur, of course, and sulfur mixed with water and then a bit of oxygen makes sulfuric acid. Metal parts in these machines kind of corrode and go away if you just leave the ugly, ugly water in it. So, I've got a clean bucket of water. I'm going to pull out the pump, somehow I'm going to get into the bucket of water, and I'm going to run clean water through the machine. Open up the valves and let the clean water go through the machine and rinse out all of the mud. You can see all of a sudden everything starts getting much cleaner. And now my machine will last a lot longer. So a quick run of the tailings through the Gold Hog multi-sluice and see if they held any gold values at all. Ew. Well, the good news is I don't see big lines of gold in the multi-sluice, which means the gold drop did most of the work at capturing the gold. But let's see what the Gold Hog caught. So yes, there were still a lot of ultra fine gold in those tailings. So that just means I should have classified down to the 50 or 100 mesh before I ran that stuff. and run it in multiple runs. I'm learning, but this is giving me good information. So there we have the coarse gold, which I'd say is about 80% of the gold. The medium gold, which I'd say is about another 15%. And the fine gold, this is really fine gold, which makes up about 5% of the gold. So with what the machine actually caught, these two, about 95% of the gold, about 5% in the losses, but I can reduce that. I can reduce that by classifying tighter. Well, the Gold Drop did a good job, catching about 95% of the gold in that hard rock crush, but I think it can do better. I have to classify a little tighter, and maybe learn how to adjust the valves and everything a little bit better. Hopefully in the future, when travel's allowed again, John from Gold Drop will be able to come up and actually take me through some of the finer details, get the expert involved, and I'll definitely take a video for all of you to watch. I hope you enjoyed my little adventure here in playing with the Gold Drop Concentrator. If you did, please leave that thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please consider subscribing. Looking at Google Analytics, I see that 60% of my viewers are not subscribed. Please consider subscribing. It does help my channel out. Big thanks for everyone for watching, and an extra big thanks to my patrons out there. Because of your support, I get to make these videos for all of YouTube to watch. Hope everyone's having an amazing day, and until the next one, bye.